Lead Poker Pro. Data22 plays on Party has Denarius/Data22 and has profited over $250,000 playing 5/10ths of a dollar and out hold'em from a single $50 deposit. Watch how Tim crushes online poker cash games. He has over 80 full-length videos on outstanding poker. Watch full-length videos of tim.Join outstanding poker now.
And however he's learned how to play, he's like, well, 3-betting a lot is good, because it is good, but you have to really be aware of, well, how are your opponents going to respond to those 3-bets? So I'm not just going to let him 3-bet me. And when I say 3-bet, for those who don't know, meaning that if I make a raise and then he makes a re-raise, it's what we call a 3-bet. If he's going to just be 3-betting me relentlessly, I'm going to have to take a stand at some point. But at the same time, you really want to be patient. And if I didn't have a very strong hand there, I would have just folded and waited for a better opportunity. But I think a hand like Ace Jack does connect well with a lot of flops, and I think it's ahead of his 3-betting range. So I don't mind seeing a flop there, and I am prepared to bluff raise some flops where I think it's not likely that he hit it, and I can credibly represent a strong hand. Now, the reason you could ask, well, maybe the better play on that flop there would be to check call and try to induce some more action. The reason I didn't decide to check call there was because I think that at these stakes and these types of players, they're not going to give you more action on bluffs in a 3-bet pot as a complete bluff, unless he's a complete maniac, which I don't have any evidence at this point to support that he's a complete maniac. But if he's a standard player that's playing aggressive and playing a tight aggressive game that's 3-betting a lot, those are the types of players that they'll make their 3-bet, they'll make their continuation bet with most of their range that they 3-bet with, but then they're going to shut down if they don't have a hand. And a hand like Ace Jack there, it's vulnerable to a lot of the hands that are in his 3-betting hand range, such as like a King Queen type hand, a King 10 type hand, just a wide range of hands that could potentially improve on the turn or the river. And then, like, if a Queen or King comes on the turn or river, it's going to put me in a really tough spot because number one, I'm going to be out of position, and number two, I'm not going to know whether that or how that hit his hand or how well it did or not. So I stand to lose a lot of money if I want to get to showdown. He continues to hammer the pot. And also, my read at this point with this type of player is that he's not going to really put in a lot more money on the turn or river unless he really connects with the flop, or if he's just a crazy maniac, which I don't have any evidence to support that read yet. So I think the check raising the flop is the best play, because if he's sitting on like a Queen Jack type hand, he's gonna have a tough time folding, and I'm gonna get or like a Jack 10, and I'm gonna end up getting my stacking good, as well as I don't risk him drawing out on me on the turn or river. There are merits as well to check calling if you're playing an opponent that will put more money in with a weaker hand on the turn, or if I had a stronger hand, like say if I had like I don't know, an Ace King type hand, and there aren't as many scare cards on the turn or river, because I flop a pair of aces there. Check calling might say, in fact, same hand, I had Ace Jack, but instead of flop being Jack Deuce Deuce, it was Ace Deuce Deuce. I think that probably the best play there would be to check call, because I'm not as concerned about an overcard coming, as well as the fact that his range is more made up of other aces. So number one, I have a decent kicker with Ace Jack, but at the same time, he could have me outkicked with a better kicker of a Jack, and then two, he could continue to bluff the ace, in which case I'll get more value out of him, and three, he could have a weaker kicker and potentially think his hand's good if I'm playing my hand a little weaker by just check calling the flop. So I don't mind check calling if it was like an Ace Deuce Deuce type hand. So here I've gone up against him again. He decided to call me. This hand hits a ton. This flop hits a ton of his calling range. I flopped a gut shot here. I don't mind continuing to firing out a continuation bet here, and I'm going to go ahead and fire a double barrel here. I think that 9 is a good card for me, because if he's sitting on a hand like and it's an okay card to maybe even triple barrel here. If he's sitting on the hand like 6-7 or like, and I'm gonna go ahead. I think it's gonna be profitable for me to go ahead and fire another barrel here, unless he's sitting on like a pair of kings. I don't expect him to fold a king here, but I think there's just too often that he's sitting on like a 7-8, like a Jack 10 type hand with a gut shot. There's so many draws or any 2 spades, they all missed, and by me raising pre-flop, firing all 3 streets, I'm representing like a massively strong hand. So unless he thinks I'm crazy, which he doesn't really have reason to believe yet at this point, because I haven't done anything out of line. I think my 3 barrels is going to be profitable there. And don't get me wrong, some of the time I expect him to call, but like from a pure mathematical point of view, that bet there, I think I bet 14 into $16. It only has to work about 45% of the time for it to be a profitable bet. So like, as long as he's folding 45% of the time, it's going to be a profitable bet and one that you should be making. But let's also not get carried away here by just thinking that you can just pound every pot you're in and expect to win it, because it's definitely not the case. The reason I thought that 3 barrel there was profitable, and for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think my image at this point at the table is credible enough for me to be able to fire 3 streets and be credible that I actually have a strong hand. If I had been getting a line, or even if I hadn't been getting a line, maybe I'd just been getting smacked with the deck earlier, but I hadn't been going to a lot of showdowns, and my opponents might perceive me to be getting out of line, and that's an important thing to think about, is your perceived image versus what is actually happening. If I had been perceived to be getting out of line previously, I might not have made that triple barrel bluff. But at the same time, the other important factor to consider is how that board and how the continued turn and river action hits your opponent's hand range. Now, if he actually had a strong hand, he'd likely be raising either the flop or the turn there, because the board's very drawy. And meaning, when I say draw, I mean there's a ton of draws like gut shots, or there's a flush draw out there like 7-8 had an open end straight draw. Queen Jack had a gut shot. Jack 10 had a gut shot. Any like ace 9 of spades, or like ace king of spades or whatever, had like a combo draw of like spades plus a pair that like isn't going anywhere on that, and you want to get your money in if you actually have, like, say, a really strong hand like a set, or like 2 pair or whatever. So I think number one, I think what I was given reason to believe that he didn't really like his hand, because he would have been raising either the flop or the turn if he really liked it, because he didn't want he doesn't know, maybe I'm drawing, he doesn't want to allow me to suck out. Number two, there's a lot of draws that are in his range, that hands in his range that are drawing hands that are gonna call the flop, gonna call the turn, but then fold to a big river bet, such as 7-8, or like even like your like I don't know, 7-6 type hands that have hit bottom pair, don't really believe you on the turn, but then if you fire another river bet, they're going to give you credit for having a strong hand. I don't expect a king, like he could conceivably also fold a king there if he's sitting on like a king, I don't know, let's say king 10 type hand. Like, it's pretty much only a bluff catcher. I'm not really going to be betting like a king jack type hand there for value too often. So if he has king 10, it's really only a bluff catcher. He really only can call there if he thinks I'm bluffing. So he could conceivably just fold that a king, like a weak king type hand as well. So I think I've gone over a bunch of reasons why I think that the triple barrel there, bluff there, was going to be profitable. As well as you have to look at, well, what's your equity in the hand? I also had a gut shot, so if a 10 did come there on the turn of the river, my hand does improve quite substantially. And as well, the other thing to consider is if you can start to represent other cards that come on the turn of the river. So because the turn of the river came non-threatening cards to a drawing hand, like they didn't really complete any draws. What I would have been concerned about were if like if a 5 came, completing 7-8. If a 10 came, although that would have a 10 would have improved my hand to a straight. If a 10 came, it also could have improved a 7-8 to a straight as well. Or if another spade came, it would have actually made for an interesting dynamic, because either I'd have to think about, well, can I credibly represent that I'm sitting on a flush draw and represent the flush? Or at the same time, I have to be concerned about, well, is this guy sitting on flush as well? And the way he played it, where he's playing quite passively, he very conceivably could have been sitting on a flush draw as well. So I'm not sure. I would have triple barreled a spade river because he could potentially have had it himself, but definitely something to think about, and some of the things you should be thinking about when deciding, well, is this a good card to fire a second barrel? Is this a good card to fire a third barrel on the river? And don't get me wrong, I'm very rarely firing 3 barrels, and I can't stress enough, don't get carried away, especially at these stakes where people very, very rarely fold. But it's definitely an interesting hand, and a good hand to really evaluate, well, all the things you really want to be thinking about when determining whether to try to bluff your opponent, and really determine, well, is this going to be a profitable bluff? And you notice right when I made the bet, I was saying, well, I do expect him to call a certain percentage of the time, and I don't expect him to be folding a king. So I'm not just sitting there trying to hammer it home and just force him to fold. You really have to think about, well, what types of hands does your opponent have that will call the flop bet, call the turn bet, but then fold the river bet. You have to conceivably put him on a wide enough range of hands that will fold to that third bet. And because there are so many draws that miss out there, I think that or like weak, like one pair hands, or maybe sitting on like pocket 10s or pocket jacks, those types of hands will fold to 3 bets. So if you're going to make bluffs, you really have to start thinking about, well, what types of hands are my opponents going to fold, and did they credibly get to that point with those hands? Here's another interesting spot. We get 2 limpers. I've explained a ton in my previous videos that I love to punish limpers because it's such a weak play, and oftentimes I can just take the pot down pre-flop there, or even if they do, like what dreams are made of is when they call with their like shitty hand, like 8-7 suited or something, just trying to hit a flop with that, and really getting incorrect odds to call another $3 with their suited connector, that sort of thing. I'm happy to build the pot when they call with those types of hands, and at the same time, I'm happy to take down all the blinds pre-flop too. So it works out to my advantage a lot of the time. Definitely profitable.